So what did Lloyd say? Lloyd says, I've been doing a decent amount of work with prompt.custom in the v4 beta to build out a bunch of custom prompts based on my exploration of effect small. But if you would like to roast my implementation and give any pointers you see on how to improve the render cycle, that would be good. This, I guess, this file is the first couple of experiments. There's a scratch pad on this repository you can use. This repository has the production versions with 6 different form components here. So you got the text area, the text input, the select, the multi-select, horizontal select, and confirm. Would also love to know what prompt.custom was intended for and if I'm using it correctly. Okay.
Before anyone roasts you, please increase the font size.
I will. In fact, I'm just going to clone the project.
Clone the repository. Okay, that's good.
Window. Office hours. Git clone. There's a question in chat while this is loading. Is there a way in effect SQL to declare tables from effect schemas? No.
Again, that's not an ORM, so that's more like an ORM would do that. As Maxwell mentioned before, there are just ways to perform a query and then take out the output of the query and use a schema to decode the output of that query into what the schema does. But that's not an ORM that describes tables as objects again.
Has anybody ever seen the original Santa Claus movie, like with Tim Allen, whatever? There's this scene in the Santa Claus where Tim Allen, when he first is doing like the Christmas deliveries, he goes down the chimney and there's this little girl sleeping on the couch, and I forget what happens the first time, but he tells the little girl that he's lactose intolerant, and then the next year when he comes back, he drinks the milk and he's like, and the little girl goes, "What's wrong?" And she said, you said you were lactose intolerant. And I don't know why, but I just got like that scene flashback for when Lloyd was like, I added a Nick's flake for you this time. Because there's a flake in the project this time. Thank you very much, Lloyd. Appreciate it. It makes my life easier. Let's take a look. So packages, where was it? Scaffold?
It was into the scratch. It was into the scratch pad. There was 07 text prompts.
Oh, it's a different project. Hang on a minute. Gotta clone this one too. Lloyd.
Oops. Mono repos.
Git clone. CD effect. Blindly during allowing. Installing malware on my machine.
Yeah, what could go wrong? I don't know.
What could go wrong? Actually, speaking of what could go wrong, I'm going to run a pm install in a second after I scan. I'm like so paranoid now about installing any project on my machine. It is so scary. This looks fine.
Oh, yeah.
Here we go. This is the moment that Max installed the worm onto his machine. All right.
And that was the last time they saw Maxwell online.
The stream immediately cuts out.
Exactly.
It's not funny, but it is. Okay, so Lloyd wants us to look at why are we getting so one of the questions I think Lloyd has was, would also love to know what prompt.custom was intended for and if I'm using it correctly. Absolutely. Hang on. do, 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 do. Let's look at your implementation. So this is a box input
Mhm.
using prompt.custom. Prompt.custom, it takes two, for those who are not aware, prompt.custom takes two arguments, the state, which can either be like the actual state pure, like the pure initial state or an effect that resolves to the initial state, and then a set of handlers for the different states of a prompt. And so what is the state
Also,
here? We have
before people start asking, we are speaking about prompts for CLIs, not prompts for agents. Just to give
good,
some context.
good call. I'm anyway, so let's take a quick peek through here. We've got the process method, we've got the clear method, and we've got, so on a prompt, again, for those who are unawares, there are three handlers you have to implement. There's the render method, which gets called when the current state has been processed. So you get like the state and you get the action that you're now trying to render. So the action could be like a beep, which is our way of saying like to do like it semantically maps like in your brain to the terminal beep sound, but you can do whatever you want here. So this is like kind of like you've done something invalid, you've clicked an invalid button. And to be clear, prompt.custom is designed sort of like as a state machine where you have your initial state, you process that state to return an action, which then gets rendered by the terminal. So this is the render method, but if we scroll down again, here's the process method, and then clear is a special case for like when you want to actually clear all the terminal output. But if we just focus on process, so you get the initial render based on the initial state that you've provided, and then you capture user input. So every single time the user inputs something, process will run, and then you'll end up rendering the next like state, right? So you get the user input and the current state, and then you do something with it. So in this case, uh, we've got like handlers for backspace, left, right, enter. Maybe we can even look at this.